Hi everyone, it's Anne at Martin House Flowers. In this video, I decided to share with you how I finally prune my Royal Candles Veronica in the back garden. This garden we planted sometime in early May, June of this year, and I did a video where I added these 3 Veronica Royal Candles to the bed, and they have just been the most impressive and low maintenance Veronica. I do have another variety of Veronica in the front bed in the south garden, but I needed to prune those mid-season, and then they got a second flush. But these Veronica, I don't recall ever pruning them midway through the season after their first bloom when they died off, because quite honestly they just continuously bloomed all the way until late fall, and only recently after our first frost did I notice that the blue, incredibly blue flowers had died off. So I'm just going in here and I'm taking off the entire length of the flowers, and that represents about a foot of the branches of flowers that I've cut right back down to the where the foliage or leaves start, and where I saw some dead branches or dead foliage, I went ahead and cut those back. And this is a summer blooming perennial that likes full sun, full to part sun. And as you can see here, they had grown to just over 12 inches in their first season. According to the specs of the Veronica Speedwell variety, it's supposed to grow 12 inches high to a spread of 12 inches. And because I put 3 plants side by side, I wanted them to grow into a nice hedge of Veronica, a sea of blue, and I think they've already hit their full maturity this first season. So I went along here and just continued to cut back the Veronica. After I finished cutting back the second shrub, I was taking a look at the forsythia. It's a proven winners forsythia that I had also planted this season. And I was looking at them and seeing that there was a lot of new buds that would be forming in the next year, and I decided to just leave my forsythia alone. Forsythia will grow off old wood, and I'm just going to let that grow until the spring, and at which time, after they bloom early spring, I might cut it back. But quite honestly, forsythia is one of those low maintenance shrubs that you really don't need to do much pruning. They will give you a beautiful, prolific growth of yellow flowers. I also wanted to mention that all of the flowering perennials and shrubs that are back here are very drought tolerant. So here I am in front of the Bloomerang lilac, and I see some dead blooms, died off blooms here. And I see, I'll zoom in later, new buds here, right about here. So I'm going to cut just above it. And I'm just going to go along here and do it pretty quickly. Just basically taking about 4 inches off. Because again, I'm quite sure these will grow off old wood. So there's a bud there. And all of this is pretty spent. So I'm cutting right above here. Just going to go along and look for all of those new buds. There's one down here. It's done. I was watching Matthew on Southern Gardener in the Northern Climate, I think his channel's called. Anyway, he's an heirloom ambassador, heirloom roses ambassador. I've used his discount a few times, and it was comforting to see that he's pruning the same way that I am, in terms of his hydrangeas. He does a lot of proven winners as well. And what I was getting at was that his rule of thumb in pruning his roses is to leave them to be about knee high. And I think that's a really good rule of thumb for a lot of flowering shrubs, because the fear with sometimes is when they're growing off new wood or old wood is you don't want to cut back too far, and then because then the plant or the shrub needs to take time the next season to grow to that height that it's reached. There's a bud there, so I'm just new buds. So for the most part for me, this is slightly above knee height, but I am average. I'm not average, I'm pretty petite. So I'm about a little bit higher than that. But I think it's a good general rule of thumb. For me, it would be slightly above the knee. So I'm not cutting too much off. As you can see here, anywhere from 6 to 12 inches off on this, because this is a new shrub, but it will grow pretty big. So I'm not concerned about cutting too much off, because as we know, lilacs tend to be, this isn't as aggressive a grower, as tall a grower as the old lilacs we're all accustomed to, that can grow, up to 10 feet high, 7 to 10 feet high. So I'm just taking a look here to see if there's this one here. So I think this one's pretty good. And like with any pruning, you want to discourage any branches that are going into the middle of the plant or shrub. You want it to grow outwardly, like a vase. It's not super windy, but my camera's gotten knocked over a couple of times. So we'll see what we catch here, because a little difficult to prune if I'm holding the camera and I don't have anyone following me around. I don't think I've ever had anyone follow me around to film me. I think Greg's done it once, and poor guy, I always tell him he takes the most unflattering footage. Or I'm just too critical of myself, is likely the case. I'm using my old Felco pruners, and I've had these for over 20 years. I just need to sharpen them. They're okay, but they're not as squeaky as my other ones that I've been using, my Fiskars, that are nice and sharp because they're new, but I need to oil those, and I just haven't gotten around to it. I need to do some fall maintenance on my tools. Trying to do that, keep everything clean that's going into the greenhouse in terms of my tools. I don't allow anyone or myself to put any tools in the greenhouse if they haven't been cleaned, because I want to discourage any kind of disease or anything. So that way, every time I go to grab them, I know they've been disinfected with alcohol or bleach or whatever you choose to use. So I'm just like taking even like sometimes just an inch or two off, because I'm seeing these buds and I don't want to, you know, compromise these the new growth or new flowers next spring. See, that's how much and right behind here, see, here's one growing inwardly. I'm just going to cut it completely. If I see a really dead looking branch, I'm just cutting it off. And if it's growing inwardly like this one, cutting it off. This is sort of a good rule of thumb. If branches are growing inwardly and are spindly and are going to compete for circulation on the inside of the shrub, you don't want it. Like this one here, I want to encourage it to grow up and out like a V or a vase shape. I think that's pretty good. It's a first year shrub, so I don't want to be too aggressive in the pruning. And it's pretty evident that this grows on old wood. Okay. Oh. So this guy here, hopefully you can see, it has experienced complete dieback. And this is my baptisia. And I know the rabbits were aggressively just chopping it like a deer would just chop a nice clean. And I caged it as a result. But these have clearly died back. So I'm just going to go in here and cut off all of these dead foliage and not go too far down so that the shrub, the branches look really dead, but I don't want, I'm cutting it down to about 12 to 18 inches right above a node. So there you go, because this is clearly dead foliage that's not going to, you know, green up in the spring. So I'm going to keep this cage on here and hopefully, cross our fingers, it does okay. But look how good, this is the candy tuft. Look how good those fresh greenery there. So those are going to be an early spring bloomer. And they've grown. They've probably doubled in size since I moved them from the container. Penstemon over here. I think I'm just going to cut back right there. Let's see if I can hold the camera. Just going to cut back to here. It's still pretty green, so, and this bloom was here forever, all summer and into the frost, past the frost, but I'm going to trim that back. This again was the first year that it went in, since this whole bed is new. So I'm just going to basically deadhead as we would in the spring. See if I can get right there. And anything that looks dead, like right here, I'm going to cut it back. There you go. So I'm over here on the side yard, right beside my hose link and by the arbor. So this is the south east side of the garden. And my nose is dripping already. And so I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stella D'Oro Daylilies. Let me double check there isn't one underneath. And I know that I've ordered 3 David Austin roses that are coming in the spring. I ordered them from my local garden market, so they're going to be a nice size. It'll probably, see, when I get, the majority of my roses come from heirloom roses, and they tend to be only about 12 to 15 inches, roughly 12 to 18 inches in height, and they take usually a year to really mature. But these come in, the ones I get from my local garden market, she sends me usually, I'm not sure if they're 1 gallon or 2 gallon, but you'll see in past videos where I was planting some of my roses from her, they're pretty mature. So because this one here, it was a heirloom rose, this is its 2nd year. This is Carefree Wonder. It was the one that was eaten down to the ground. And it's really done well. And I'm going to use that rule of thumb. It's finished blooming. We've had a couple frosts, so I am going to prune it back. It's done really well, but I do want to use that rule of thumb of cutting it down to about knee height, which for me, because I'm so short, I'm only 5'2", I'm going to let it grow or keep it, to about this height here above the knee, maybe mid-thigh height for me. And I did, after pruning those Veronicas and Lilacs, I did take some alcohol and clean my pruners. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this back. There's a lot of new growth on here that are not going to, bloom for this spring. So, and then we're also going to plant some bulbs in here because, as I mentioned, I lied, said I was finished planting in the ground. I think I told someone that. And I somehow got conned into some exciting roses that I saw, or tulips that I saw online, and hyacinths, of course. So I'm going to cut it back to about, wow, look at that, this height here, because let's do that test again. That is about mid-thigh for me, right above, it's a little bit above the knee for someone average. So I think that's a good spot to cut it back to, right about here. Because, and I didn't use my leather gloves, because we do get quite the winds over here. When I go to move these, I'm gonna have to get my leather gloves. We do get quite the wind here, and I don't want to risk these getting bounced around with the wind and potentially uprooting or damaging the shrub. And there's a branch that's growing inwardly. Definitely don't want that. Any foliage that's growing into the center, I'm cutting it back. So, as per my previous video, I've already gone in and mulched or composted the base of all of my roses, and anything that had black spot on the leaves, I already defoliated them. This one was very healthy, so I didn't do that, but I'm going to go ahead and cut back some of this foliage so that it can, it clearly needs to go dormant if it hasn't already with the frost we've had. And you just don't want the roots to have to put any extra energy into any more growth on the plant, whether it be foliage or you just want it to go dormant. So I'm basically defoliating most of everything here. And I'm not going to pick up this pile of foliage from this rose until I change my gloves, because there's definitely going to be some pricklies. So as you can see here, I've really cut this rose down. And I am so thrilled about this rose. Not so much for the blooms on it. I'm hoping that they get a little stronger, but this was the rose. I can drop a picture, and that was a little bit loose in the flower itself. It was, you know, it opened up so quickly. It was not, it's more of a, almost like a garden rose, landscape rose, but there you go. But anyway, whoops. I'm just so thrilled with it because I know that it's a very hardy rose, because it was eaten literally down to an inch of the ground by the rabbits. And then I put a cloche over it, and it made a really wonderful comeback. So there you go. I'm not going to plant anything over here, but moving on to the daylilies, I can dig up this particular one, because I know I'm going to plant a rose. Probably I'm going to dig that up right now, dig this one up. I have 3 roses to go in, so I definitely want to plant one here, because this is a good 2 feet away. I'll plant one around here a little bit over. So I think I'm going to go ahead and dig these up so I can plant my bulbs, and also have the ground ready for my roses. And this rose here will eventually grow back here, so this is just going to be in the way, and I have a lilac, or an iris right there. So I'm going to go ahead and dig this one up now that I've cut it back. It's just going to be easier than doing it in the spring, and the ground is not frozen yet. Did he get out? Yes. Let him go. Oh. You're on camera, Eddie. just let him. Just let him. He'll come back. I don't know if you heard. Eddie got out. So there's the roots. The daylily. They're pretty shallow. I had to take a break there because Eddie got out. So he's been captured and is in the mudroom, his timeout room. And we have to leave soon. Anyway, to go to a little concert at the church. And Greg's oldest is playing in the orchestra. And then we're going out for dinner with friends. So I'm just gonna, this hole's been dug, and with the daylilies, I'm hoping nothing grows. Uh-oh, that might be a root of the lilac. And while I'm here, because the hole's been dug, I'm gonna go ahead and plant some tulips around here, because I know we've got an iris and a rose it's in between an iris and a rose, and that way all the foliage can get camouflage, you know, when they start to die back, and you want to leave your tulip foliage until they die back before you cut them, so that they get all their nutrients for the following season. Later on, I'll go through my tulip choices. I did all blues and purples. So let me just grab, in the interest of time here, I've got purple, white. These are Tulip Triumph Flaming Flag. And Tulip Triumph Blue Beauty. And 2 Blue Beauties. So I just have 2 varieties, and then I have the hyacinths that I will do after in the greenhouse. I think I'm going to put those in containers and some in front of the... I'm sorry, my camera looks a little crooked. Let me see if I can straighten that. So since I have 2 packages of 20 the Blue Beauty, I'm going to put a few in here. I brought my hodag and my Japanese knife. I'm just going to try to level off this hole. This iris over here, it gets a lot of traffic in this section because I jump off the porch and grab my hose link, and I think it got stepped on a few times. So it didn't bloom this year. Sorry about... I'm trying to do something quick, not to use my handheld tripod. It's not really a tripod. It's more of a selfie stick. It just... with a tiny little bit of wind. So I'm just putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down here. And then bury that back up. I really like this spot here for tulips because there's a lot that's going in here that will camouflage the foliage, as I mentioned. So I'm going to dig up this other one right beside it. And then get the idea. And in the spring, I'll be in the same spot enjoying the tulips and planting my roses. And I'll know exactly where my tulips are. And these were already moved once before. These daylilies, I believe I moved from the front yard, the south side. I remember the builder had some on the side here, but I can't recall. These are pretty young roots, so it could be a transplant. And I'm not replanting them anywhere else in the garden. Add to the pile. So that's 5. One in the middle, 6. Make the soil back in. Try not to get any roots. I don't want these daylilies coming back. Oh, because they do. They sometimes just keep on coming back. A lot of shallow roots. And pick out whatever I can get. I think I heard somewhere before that sometimes daylilies can be invasive. I don't think they're invasive in my area. They're just very plentiful, and they're just too overdone. And I don't like the maintenance, how bad they look. I still have a bunch over there that I haven't cut back beside my delphiniums. So there you go. I have a pile here and a pile here, and then there's my irises and there's a rose. So that's it for now. I'll come back and clean up this area, but for now I gotta go. Get ready. I got 5 minutes to get ready and get out the door. And then we'll plant up some hyacinths, as I promised, in the next part. And I think those are the roots of the irises that I'm seeing here. Okay, grab my tools, my Felco pruners, give those a clean up again.